The golden grasslands of Savo stretched endlessly under the African sun, their silence broken only by the distant call of a fish eagle and the whisper of wind through acacia thorns. But on this particular morning, something was terribly wrong. A tiny figure moved desperately through the tall grass, trunk swaying frantically as soft, heartbreaking trumpets echoed across the empty savanna. The baby elephant was no bigger than a small car, his wrinkled skin still bearing the dust of yesterday's travels with his mother. But she was gone now, vanished into the cruel reality that had claimed so many matriarchs in recent months. Rangers suspected poachers had moved through the area under cover of darkness, though no evidence remained except for one devastating truth. A 6-month-old calf was now completely alone in one of Africa's most unforgiving landscapes. Little Django, as the Rangers would later name him, had been wandering for 2 days, following faint scent trails that led nowhere, calling out to a herd that would never answer. His tiny legs trembled with exhaustion, his trumpet calls growing weaker with each passing hour. In the vast ecosystem of Savo, a lone calf was nothing more than an easy meal waiting to happen. The lions smelled him long before they saw him. It started with one, a scarred lioness emerging from the brush like a golden shadow. Then 3 more appeared, their amber eyes locked on the helpless calf. Within minutes, 12 lions materialized from the grassland, moving with the deadly precision of apex predators who had found their opportunity. They spread out in a perfect semicircle, cutting off every escape route as Django backed against a towering termite mound. The calf's panicked cries pierced the morning air, his trunk waving wildly as his small legs scrambled for purchase on the rocky ground. He was too young to run, too small to fight, and too inexperienced to understand that his life was about to end in the most brutal way nature could offer. The pride leader crouched low, muscles coiled like steel springs, calculating the exact moment to deliver the killing blow. From his position on a distant ridge, Ranger Samuel watched through binoculars, his heart sinking as he realized he was too far away to intervene. He had been tracking this particular pride for weeks, documenting their movement patterns, but he never expected to witness something this heartbreaking. His hand moved toward his rifle, knowing full well that any shot from this distance would be meaningless. The savanna held its breath. A warthog froze mid-step. A giraffe lifted its head, sensing the tension in the air. Even the wind seemed to pause, as if the entire ecosystem was waiting for the inevitable. Then, the earth began to tremble.
At first, it was subtle, a vibration that could have been mistaken for distant thunder. But there was no storm on the horizon, no clouds in the crystal-clear sky. The trembling grew stronger, more rhythmic, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Dust began to rise in the distance, and through the golden haze, a massive silhouette emerged. The bull elephant that stepped into the clearing was a giant among giants. Standing nearly 12 feet tall and weighing close to 7 tons, he moved with the slow, deliberate power of a mountain come to life. His tusks, though one was broken halfway down, gleamed like ancient ivory sabers. Deep scars crisscrossed his weathered hide, telling stories of battles fought and won across decades of solitary survival. The locals called him Bahari, the ocean, because his presence was as vast and unstoppable as the tide. He had been cast out from his herd years ago, exiled in the brutal politics of elephant society, forced to wander the wilderness alone. Most rangers believed he had died long ago, becoming nothing more than a legend whispered around campfires. But legends, it seemed, had a way of returning when they were needed most. Bahari stepped into the clearing like a force of nature itself. The lions froze, their predatory confidence evaporating in an instant. The calf stood motionless, his trunk still raised in terror. But something in his eyes shifted, a flicker of hope, of recognition that ran deeper than conscious thought. The old bull didn't charge immediately. Instead, he simply stood there, his massive ears flared wide. his head held high with the dignity of a creature who had survived everything the wilderness could throw at him. When he finally opened his mouth, the sound that emerged wasn't quite a roar. It was something deeper, more primal. It was the voice of the earth itself, a warning that resonated through bone and soil. The lioness at the front of the pride took a hesitant step backward. Bahari responded by moving forward, faster now, his enormous feet drumming against the hard-packed earth. The sound was like thunder, like the march of ancient armies, like justice itself taking physical form. The pride broke, not in panic, but with the measured retreat of predators who recognized a force they could not overcome. These were not cowards. They were survivors who understood that some battles were not worth fighting. Within moments, the lions melted back into the grassland, disappearing as silently as they had appeared. But Bahari wasn't finished. He approached the trembling calf with movements so gentle, they seemed impossible for a creature of his size. Lowering his massive head, he extended his trunk and placed it softly along little Django's back. The calf responded instantly, pressing against the bull's leg as if he had found the only solid thing left in a world that had tried to destroy him. Watched in amazement as the sky opened up and rain began to fall. Not the violent downpour of a storm, but the gentle, cleansing rain that comes after the worst has passed. The old bull stood perfectly still, forming a living shield between the calf and the world, his presence more powerful than any weapon. What happened next defied everything Samuel thought he knew about elephant behavior. Instead of leading the calf to safety, Bahari guided him out into the open grassland, teaching him to walk tall rather than hide. For hours they moved together across the savanna, the massive bull patient and protective, the tiny calf growing steadier with each step. Word of the rescue spread quickly through the ranger network. Wildlife photographers arrived from across Kenya, capturing images of the unlikely pair that would soon appear in newspapers around the world. But none of them witnessed what Samuel saw in the days that followed. The moment when other elephant herds began to take notice. Herds that had shunned Bahari for years began to linger near watering holes when they caught his scent. Matriarchs who had turned their backs on him during his exile now watched from a distance as he cared for the orphaned calf. The elephant community, it seemed, was reconsidering its judgment. Then came the morning when everything changed. Samuel arrived at the southern watering basin to find not just Bahari and Django, but an entire herd gathered at the water's edge. The matriarch, a wise old female named Kessie, stood watching as the calf played in the shallows under Bahari's watchful eye. What Samuel witnessed next would stay with him for the rest of his life. Slowly, deliberately, Kessie approached the exiled bull. For a long moment, they stood face to face. The matriarch who had once banished him, and the giant who had survived his exile with dignity and tact. Then she did something unprecedented. She extended her trunk and touched his scarred face in the elephant equivalent of forgiveness. One by one, the other elephants approached, offering their own gentle touches of acceptance. But the most powerful moment came when Kessie nudged little Django toward the herd, then looked back at Bahari with an expression that needed no translation. You both belong here now. The old bull, who had wandered alone for so many years, finally had his family back. The orphaned calf, who had faced certain death, now had not one protector, but an entire herd. Justice, it seemed, had many forms. Sometimes it roared like thunder. Sometimes it whispered like rain. And sometimes it simply stood its ground when the world needed it most. As Samuel watched them disappear together into the golden grassland, he realized he had witnessed something far more powerful than a rescue. He had seen redemption in its purest form, proof that even in nature's harshest moments, love finds a way to prevail. Sometimes the most incredible stories aren't about the survival of the fittest. They're about the courage of the forgotten, the strength of the outcast, and the power of showing up exactly when the world needs you most. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that even in our darkest moments, heroes can emerge from the most unexpected places? Smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories from the wild that prove love and justice still exist in this world.